It was a gray, drizzly afternoon in Detroit, Michigan, the kind of day where the city seemed to hum with restless energy. The air smelled of wet asphalt and gasoline, and the streets of the outer neighborhoods buzzed with the roar of cars cutting through the mist. Amid the chaos of this urban sprawl lived Jamal Carter, a wiry 12-year-old black kid with a chipped front tooth and a grin that could light up even the gloomiest corner of the block. Jamal wasn't rich, far from it. He shared a cramped, peeling apartment with his grandma Ruth, a woman whose hands bore the scars of a lifetime stitching factory uniforms to keep them afloat. His parents were gone. His mom lost to illness when he was 5, his dad a ghost who'd vanished before Jamal could even remember his face. But Jamal didn't let the weight of his world crush him. He had a spark, a stubborn kind of hope that kept him pedaling his rusty bike through the streets, collecting cans for a few cents here and there. That day, the rain had turned the sidewalks slick and treacherous. Jamal was weaving down Woodward Avenue, his hoodie soaked through, when he spotted a figure hunched against the drizzle. An old man stood at the curb, his white hair plastered to his skull, a gnarled wooden cane trembling in his grip. He wore a faded army jacket, the kind you'd see on vets down at the VA hospital, and his clouded eyes squinted against the blur of headlights racing past. The old man took a shaky step forward, then froze as a truck barreled by, spraying water across his legs. He looked lost, fragile, like a leaf caught in a storm. Jamal didn't hesitate. He skidded his bike to a stop, hopped off, and jogged over. "Hey, sir, you need help crossing?" His voice cut through the rain, bright and steady. The old man turned, startled, his wrinkled face softening as he took in the sight of the boy, small, drenched, but standing there like he owned the street. "You talking to me, kid?" he rasped, his voice rough as gravel. "Yeah, looks like you could use a hand," Jamal said, flashing that gap-toothed grin. He stepped closer, offering his arm. "Come on, I got you." The old man hesitated, then nodded. With Jamal guiding him, they shuffled across Woodward Avenue, dodging puddles and the impatient honks of drivers. The boy moved with care, matching the man's slow pace, his sneakers squelching in the wet. When they reached the other side, safe under the awning of a shuttered bodega, the old man leaned against his cane and studied Jamal. "What's your name, son?" "Jamal Carter," the boy replied, wiping rain from his eyes. "What's yours?" "Henry Jackson." The old man's lips twitched into a faint smile. "Why'd you stop for an old coot like me?" Jamal shrugged, kicking at a pebble. "Dunno. Figured everybody needs somebody sometime, right?" Henry chuckled, a dry, rusty sound, and something shifted in his gaze. Gratitude, maybe, or something deeper. He'd seen a lot in his 78 years. The beaches of Normandy, the civil rights marches, the slow decay of his city. But this kid, with his scrappy kindness, stirred a memory of a world he'd almost forgotten. Henry Jackson wasn't just any old man. He'd been a sergeant in the 761st Tank Battalion, the Black Panthers, during World War II, a decorated soldier who'd rolled through Nazi lines and come home to a country that didn't always welcome him back. Now, he lived alone in a sagging bungalow near the old Packard plant, surrounded by ghosts of the past and a lifetime of medals collecting dust in a drawer. No wife, no kids, just a TV that flickered with late-night reruns and a porch where he'd sit watching the world pass him by. Until Jamal. A week after that rainy day, Henry showed up at Jamal's apartment, his cane tapping against the cracked linoleum as he spoke to Grandma Ruth. "That boy of yours," he said, his voice steady despite the tremor in his hands. "He's got something special. I ain't got much, but I'd like to take him in. Give him a shot at more than this." Ruth's eyes welled up, but she saw the truth in Henry's offer. Her arthritis was worsening, her savings dwindling. She loved Jamal fiercely, but love alone couldn't pave a future. So, with a heavy heart and a whispered prayer, she let him go. Jamal moved into Henry's bungalow, a place that smelled of mothballs and history. The transition wasn't seamless. Jamal missed his grandma's humming, and Henry wasn't used to the chaos of a 12-year-old, but they found a rhythm. Henry taught Jamal how to fix a leaky faucet, how to play chess with chipped pieces, how to stand tall even when the world tried to knock you down. And at night, over plates of cornbread and collards, Henry spun stories. Tales of tank battles in the snow, of marching with Dr. King, of a country that could break your heart but still be worth fighting for. Jamal soaked it all in. He started seeing the world through Henry's eyes, not just the cracks in the pavement, but the potential beneath them. Henry pushed him to read, to dream bigger than the streets of Detroit. "You got a fire in you, boy," Henry would say, tapping his chest. "Don't let it flicker out." Years rolled by, and Jamal grew into a lanky teenager with a sharp mind and a sharper tongue. Henry scraped together every penny to send him to a decent high school, where Jamal excelled despite the whispers of kids who mocked his thrift store clothes. He won a scholarship to the University of Michigan, studying political science with a hunger that surprised even himself. College wasn't easy. Jamal worked nights at a diner to cover what the scholarship didn't, but Henry's voice echoed in his head. "Keep going, son. You're built for this." When Henry passed away during Jamal's junior year, quietly, in his sleep, Jamal felt the loss like a punch to the gut. At the funeral, standing over a simple pine coffin, he vowed to make the old man proud. He channeled his grief into action, joining campus protests against inequality, speaking at rallies with a voice that trembled at first but grew steady with every word. After graduation, Jamal didn't chase corporate jobs or cushy offices. He went back to Detroit, working with community groups to fight for better schools, safer streets, fairer wages. His name started buzzing, first in barbershops, then on local news. People called him the kid with the fire, a nod to the passion he carried like a torch. At 28, he ran for city council and won, beating out a slick incumbent with deep pockets. His victory speech, delivered on the steps of City Hall, was raw and real. "I'm here because an old man believed in me when I was just a kid with a bike. This isn't about me, it's about us." But Jamal didn't stop there. His star kept rising. By 35, he was a U.S. representative, one of the youngest in Congress, with a reputation for fearless honesty and a knack for bridging divides. He pushed bills to fund urban renewal, to protect voting rights, to give kids like him a fighting chance. His face graced magazine covers. Time dubbed him the voice of a new America. And his story inspired millions. The boy who'd helped an old man across the street, now leading a nation toward justice. One crisp November evening, as Jamal stood on the Capitol steps preparing for a vote, he paused. The wind carried a hint of rain, and for a moment, he was 12 again, pedaling down Woodward Avenue. He could almost hear Henry's gravelly laugh, feel the weight of that first step across the road. It wasn't just a crossing, it was the start of everything. Jamal smiled, adjusted his tie, and walked inside. The fire Henry had seen in him all those years ago still burned bright, lighting the way for a future he'd never dared imagine.